He crushed it. Again. My mailbox splintered across the curb like driftwood. That was number 7. Same red truck. Same neighbor. Same fake apology. "Oh man, didn't even see it there," he said, scratching his greasy neck like the words just fell out of his mouth. Every time, the same act. Every time, I had to clean it up. Pick up my mail out of puddles. Call the post office. Rebuild it from scratch. I tried being civil. I tried being patient. I even offered to move it further back from the road. He laughed. "Maybe you should just get one that doesn't jump in front of my truck." I almost did. Instead, I built something else. Something different. And the next morning? His truck made a sound like metal dying. Then silence. Let's just say, his insurance didn't cover stupidity. And my mailbox? Didn't even have a scratch. It started with the mailbox. But that was just the first crack in the dam. The first time it happened, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He knocked it over pulling out of his driveway. Backed up too fast. Clipped the edge. Smashed the post. "Didn't even feel it," he said, grinning like it was funny. "My bad. I rebuilt it. Bought a new post. Dug the hole. Set the concrete. Didn't even ask him to help." 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time going forward. Straight into it like it owed him money. "You need to move that thing," he said, still in his truck. "It's way too close to the road." It wasn't. I checked. I measured. It was exactly where it was supposed to be. Exactly where every other mailbox on the street was. Then it happened a third time. And a fourth. Each time, same story. Same apology. Same stupid smirk. He never offered to fix it. Never paid for the damage. Just said, "These things happen," and drove off. That's when I stopped believing it was an accident. His name is Rick, by the way. Of course it is. Mid-50s. Always shirtless when mowing his lawn. Big gut. Big truck. Small brain. One of those guys who loves to wave at you with 2 fingers but never actually speaks unless he's starting something. You know the type. After the 4th time, I started keeping track. Dates. Photos. Damage. Everything. Not for the police. They wouldn't do anything. I just wanted to know how far he'd go. Then he got worse. First, he started parking closer to my driveway. Right up against the edge. Sometimes hanging over. Not illegal. But annoying. Then I'd catch him standing on his porch when I took my trash out. Arms crossed. Just watching. Didn't say anything. Didn't wave. Just watched. I'd mow my lawn, and he'd start his mower 5 minutes later. Even if his grass didn't need it. Just to drown me out. Then came the complaints. He filed a noise complaint because I ran my shop vac on a Saturday afternoon. Said I was disturbing the neighborhood. Another one for having a ladder leaned against the side of my garage. For too long. Code enforcement actually showed up for that one. Wasted an hour of my day. Nothing came of it. He called animal control when my brother brought his dog over one weekend. Said there was a stray running around the property. The dog was on a leash. In my fenced backyard. He told one of our other neighbors I had a camera pointed at his house. It was my doorbell cam. Pointed straight at my front porch. He was testing me. Poking. Needling. Waiting to see how much I'd take. The 5th time he hit my mailbox, it was 2 a.m. I heard it. I was awake. Couldn't sleep. I looked out the window and saw his taillights pulling away. Didn't even stop. Mail scattered across the road. Box shattered. Post snapped clean in 2. That night, I didn't clean it up. I left it. Let the whole neighborhood see it in the morning. He didn't even pretend to feel bad. "Looks like someone needs a better post," he said with a grin. Then he winked. Winked. By the 6th time, it wasn't even about the mailbox anymore. It was about him trying to win. Trying to prove he could mess with me and get away with it. That time, he brought his son. Teenager. Maybe 17. Watched from the truck while Rick, accidentally, Drove over the mailbox while backing out. Laughing the whole time. Didn't even get out to inspect the damage. Just kept driving. I started getting notes in my mailbox. Anonymous, but I could tell they were from him. One said, "Nice paint job, shame if someone scraped it." Another said, "Too close to the road." Again. One was just a drawing. A little sketch of a crushed mailbox with a smiley face. The police wouldn't do anything unless I had video. Even then, it was just property damage. Misdemeanor stuff. Not worth the effort. "Just move the mailbox back a few feet," the officer said. Like giving in would make it stop. The 7th time was the worst. It had been maybe a month since the last one. I thought maybe he's done. Maybe he got bored. Nope. It was a Sunday morning. I walked out to grab the paper. Mailbox was in pieces. Again. Shards of wood all over the driveway. The metal door twisted off and lying in the gutter. But this time, the post was ripped out of the ground. The concrete base shattered. Like he'd hooked it with a chain and dragged it out. I looked over. Rick was sitting on his porch. Coffee in hand. Grinning. "Guess you'll need another one," he said. Then he sipped. Loudly. That was it. That was the moment. I nodded. Smiled back. Then I went inside. And I started planning. Because the next one I built? It wasn't going to be wood. It wasn't going to break. It wasn't going to budge. And if Rick wanted to hit it again, he was going to feel it this time. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't. Because I didn't want to. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a cup of burnt coffee. Just thinking. Staring at the last picture I took, what was left of mailbox number 7. Rick had won. Again. My front yard looked like a war zone. Broken posts. Dirt torn up. Concrete chunks in the grass. And him, sitting across the street like he owned the place. I could feel it in my chest. This low, pulsing tension. Like static before a storm. And just like that, I was done. But before I could strike back, he went further. A few days after. Mailbox Massacre 7. A letter showed up. Not from Rick. From the Homeowners Association. Apparently, someone filed a formal complaint about me keeping unsightly debris in my yard. Guess what they were talking about? Yeah. The smashed mailbox. I had 48 hours to remedy the visual disruption or face fines. 2 days. To clean up a mess he made. That was just the beginning. Later that week, I came home from work and saw bright orange spray paint on the sidewalk in front of my house. Utility markings. Except I hadn't called for any work. Turns out, someone had submitted a fake dig request, using my name. Scheduled me for trenching work I never ordered. I had to cancel the crew and explain to 3 different departments that no, I wasn't digging up my lawn. Guess who was outside watering his grass when I made the phone calls? Rick. Shirtless. Sunglasses. Big stupid smile. It wasn't just the mailbox anymore. It was everything. My garbage can started getting knocked over. My packages went missing. The back tire on my car mysteriously lost air twice in a week. I'd hear tapping on my windows at night. Little clicks. Like pebbles. When I'd get up to look, nothing. Once, I found greasy fingerprints on my back gate. Another time, footprints in my flower bed. Size 12. Work boots. And then, Rick started dragging my family into it. My sister came by one afternoon to drop off some boxes I'd left at her place. She parked out front, engine running. 5 minutes tops. Rick called the city on her. Said there was an abandoned vehicle obstructing the roadway. A cruiser showed up. Lights on. Told her to move or get cited. She was livid. I was humiliated. Another time, my dad came over to help me fix his shed hinge. Rick shouted across the street. "Hope your son's paying you in beer for that labor, old man." My dad's a veteran. Never lost his cool in his life. But that day, he stepped toward the sidewalk. I had to stop him. That was the moment it hit me. Rick wasn't trying to annoy me anymore. He was trying to ruin me. My job started slipping. I was late for meetings. distracted, short-tempered. It's hard to focus on sales data when you're wondering if your neighbor poured bleach on your lawn. One night, I got home and realized I'd left my phone on top of the car. It had been a brutal day. No lunch. 4 hours of back-to-back calls. I just stood in the driveway and stared at my house. I didn't even want to go inside. Didn't want to see if something else had gone wrong. That's when I realized I was starting to live around him. Checking the window every time I heard a truck. Hesitating before taking out the trash. Trying to guess when he'd be away so I could mow in peace. He was in my head. All the time. And the worst part? He knew it. The final straw came on a Sunday. I was in the garage fixing a tool shelf. Music on low. Door open. Just trying to enjoy a normal day. Rick walks over. Stands at the edge of my driveway. Doesn't say anything. Just waits. I pause my music. Look at him. He shrugs. You know, I've been thinking. Maybe the reason your mailbox keeps getting crushed is because you've got bad energy. I blink. What? He grins. Some people just attract damage. You know what I mean? Then he walks away. That was it. Not the mailbox. Not the complaints. Not even the passive-aggressive garbage games. That line. That smug little philosophy of his. Like the universe was punishing me for existing near him. No. Not anymore. I put my tools down. Walked inside. Opened my laptop. Typed in 3 words. Steel. Reinforced. Mailbox. If he wanted to hit it again, I was going to give him the opportunity. Just one more time. But this time? He'd be the one picking up pieces. Enough is enough. It's time for revenge. I didn't want to go nuclear. I wanted to live in peace. Mow my lawn. Get my mail without stepping over debris. But Rick wanted a war. So I gave him one. The night after his bad energy speech, I stayed up till 3 a.m. researching. I started simple. How to build a mailbox that can survive anything. First hit was some Reddit thread. Guy in Michigan whose mailbox kept getting hit by drunk teens. He replaced it with one made of concrete and wrapped it in wood to keep it legal looking. I bookmarked it. Then I searched DOT mailbox placement laws, USPS guidelines for mailbox safety, reinforced mailbox ideas. I dove deep. Forums, legal codes, building supply sites. Found out more about mailbox laws than I ever thought I'd need. Fun fact, there's no national law saying your mailbox can't be made of steel. It just has to be the right height and distance from the road. And it can't be a road hazard, which is vague by design. Perfect. I kept digging. At first I had some bad ideas. Bad idea number 1. Spikes. Yeah. Like a porcupine mailbox. Cover the post in metal spikes or rebars so anything that touches it gets shredded. 2 problems. Definitely illegal. Definitely going to end with me being sued. Bad idea number 2. Electric current. Install a little battery. Wire the box. Give him a surprise next time he leans on it. But then I had visions of headlines. Local man kills idiot neighbor with DIY mailbox trap. Also, probably a felony. Bad idea number 3. Security camera live stream, broadcasting every move to a public feed. Mailbox watch 24/7. My buddy Nate actually liked that one. Said I could add a donation button. But that wasn't justice. That was content. I didn't want views. I wanted consequences. So I made a new plan. One that wouldn't get me arrested. One that wouldn't look suspicious. One that would hurt, but only if Rick made the first move. It started with a list. Steel square post. Quickset concrete. Plywood and adhesive wrap. Decorative cedar trim. Post sleeve for aesthetics. Spray paint oak finish. Welding time from Nate's cousin, he's a fabricator. Legal printout of USPS mailbox specs. I spent the next 2 weeks building. Quietly. Carefully. After dark. Garage door down. No power tools outside. Nate helped. He thought I was being dramatic, but also said, Dude, if this works, you'll be a legend. The base post was 4x4 steel, solid core, powder coated. Not hollow like most. This thing weighed a ton. We bolted it into a concrete base 3 feet into the ground. Then poured reinforced concrete around that. Let it cure for 3 days. I wrapped it in decorative wood trim. Cedar from an old project. Used adhesive that wouldn't show the seams. Made it look just like my old one, rustic, plain, nothing flashy. The actual mailbox? Steel. Covered in wood veneer and paint to match the rest. From the curb, it looked like something out of a Home Depot clearance bin. Underneath? More armored than a Brinks truck. I printed out a full USPS compliance sheet and laminated it. Stapled it to a little wooden stake and stuck it in the ground beside the mailbox. Just in case Rick got curious. Or petty. Which, of course, he did. Day after install, I caught him standing in front of it. Hands on hips. Sunglasses on. Looking like a confused tourist who just spotted a parking meter for the first time. I was watching from my window. Coffee in hand. No smile. He walked up to it. Knocked on the side with his knuckle. Did a little head tilt. Knocked again. Then ran his hand along the post. I imagined him thinking, this looks new. This looks wrong. But I can't tell why. Then he took a step back. Looked around. Saw the laminated sheet. He leaned down, squinting. Then he did the thing that made me clench my fist. He grinned. Like he thought this was a game. Over the next few days, I kept watch. Didn't go anywhere unless I had to. Camera rolling 24/7. 2 angles. Battery backups. Night vision. Cloud upload. Rick didn't make a move. But his behavior changed. He parked closer. Inches from my driveway. I measured it, 7 inches from the edge of my property. He started walking his dog, a yappy little thing he usually ignored, right along my lawn. Letting it poop on the edge. Didn't pick it up. He'd whistle while it did it. Like this was all just normal neighbor behavior. Then he began waiting. Sitting on his porch. Mug in hand. Just waiting. For what? I wasn't sure yet. But I had a hunch. One night, I was out watering the lawn. Rick came over. First time he'd spoken to me face to face in weeks. He squinted at the mailbox. Looks nice, he said. Bet it'll last longer than the last one. I nodded. Hope so. He smirked. Careful though. Someone might think you're trying to hurt somebody with it. I stared at him. You planning to hit it? He chuckled. Accidents happen. Then he walked away. I called Nate that night. Tension's getting thick, I said. You think he'll hit it again? Nate asked. I don't know. But I need him to. So I baited him. I trimmed the grass around the post. Real clean. Edged the curb. Cleaned the mailbox. Made it look like a source of pride. Put a little flower pot next to it. Dumb, cheesy thing. Looked like something a grandma would set out. I made it look vulnerable. Because Rick didn't hit my mailbox out of spite. He hit it because he thought I cared about it. And now, I needed him to think I really did. 3 days passed. Nothing. Then 4. I stopped watching the cameras obsessively. Just checked footage once a day. And then, on the 6th night, around 2:12 a.m., Rick's truck headlights. Bright. Slow. Creeping up the street like a shark fin in shallow water. The cameras caught everything. The lurch. The angle. The acceleration. And then, the crunch. The horrible, beautiful, screaming sound of steel meeting engine. Then silence. The mailbox stood there. Unmoved. Glorious. His truck? Dead. Front end crumpled like a soda can. He sat there for a few seconds. Then got out. Looked around. Kicked the bumper. His face? Perfect. I paused the footage. Took a breath. It had worked. After all the garbage, all the warnings. After 7 mailbox murders. He finally hit something that hit back. And now? It was time for the real fun to begin. Rick's truck didn't just tap the mailbox. He rammed it. Full throttle, bumper first. And the mailbox didn't even wobble. I watched the footage over and over. Zoomed in on his face. When the impact hit, his head jerked forward. Then he just sat there, blinking, like a guy who just realized he peed on an electric fence. The next morning, I was out front at 6:30 a.m. Coffee in hand, hoodie on. Like I just happened to be up early on a weekday. Rick was already outside, standing in his driveway, looking at the damage. His truck, the one he'd used to destroy 7 mailboxes and his own reputation, was jacked up on one side. Front bumper folded in. Grille cracked. One headlight shattered. Hood popped. Steam stains around the radiator. I didn't need to be a mechanic to know it was bad. He saw me looking. And for once, he didn't smirk. No wave. No wink. Just turned and walked inside. Small victory? Yes. But the first taste is always the sweetest. By noon, a tow truck had come. The driver kept shaking his head. Probably because of the concrete burns on the bumper. I listened from my open garage. All that damage from a mailbox? The driver asked. Rick mumbled something. Sounded like poor design. Driver laughed. Nah, man. That's the strongest mailbox I've ever seen. I smiled. Over the next few days, Rick kept quiet. Too quiet. No more trash can games. No more sidewalk stink eye. He didn't even let his dog crap on my lawn. I should have enjoyed the peace. But it just made me suspicious. Rick doesn't disappear. He plots. A week later, I got a knock on my door. City code enforcement. Again. Guy had a clipboard and that. I hate my job. Look in his eyes. Someone filed a concern about your mailbox. Said it's a hazard to vehicles? Of course they did. I stepped outside, calm as ever. Mailbox is 5 feet from the curb. Mounted at 42 inches high. Meets all USPS and city specs. I pointed to the laminated sheet still staked in the ground. Documentation's right there. You want to measure it yourself? He sighed. Honestly? Not really. He looked it over anyway. Took a few pictures. Checked the foundation. Knocked on the post. Solid, he said. Very, I replied. He scribbled something on his form. We'll close the complaint. Nothing here violates code. As he walked away, he muttered, Wish I had one like this. Mine gets hit every other week. Another small victory. Another nail in Rick's metaphorical tire. But Rick wasn't done. He was just escalating. 2 days later, I found a fresh tire track across my front lawn. From the side, through the grass, just missing the mailbox. No note. No knock. Just a tread. Deep. Fresh. Ugly. Like a warning shot. I checked my camera footage. 2:27 a.m., Rick's son. Same red truck. Same slow roll across my grass. He must have borrowed it from the shop. Trying to test the waters. Cowards raising cowards. I clipped the footage. Saved it. Labeled it. Exhibit B. The next evening, Rick was on his porch again. Drink in hand? He waved. Friendly this time. I didn't wave back. Just stared. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Mailbox still holding up? I shrugged. Guess it was built right. He laughed. But it wasn't real. It sounded tight. Strained. Like he couldn't decide if he was annoyed or impressed. That was new. Then came the letter. Typed. No return address. No signature. Folded neatly in my mailbox, the one he said was too close to the road. I read it 3 times. You think you're clever. But you're also stupid. That thing you built? It's a trap. If something else happens, that's on you. You think this is over? It's not. No name. But I knew the tone. That passive-aggressive Rick flavor. I filed it under Exhibit C. At this point, I started taking steps. Legal steps. Not the dramatic kind. Not yet. But preparation. I called a lawyer, the same one who helped my friend deal with a neighbor who tried to sue over Emotional lawn damage. He gave me a golden phrase. Reasonable force to protect property from recurring vandalism. Then he added, as long as your mailbox isn't designed to injure, you're fine. Just keep your documents. Keep your footage. And do not engage directly. Fine by me. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I joined the HOA board. Yeah. Me. The guy who swore I'd never get involved in that political garbage. But if Rick could use the HOA as a weapon, I could too. I showed up to the next meeting. Sat quietly. Took notes. Watched Rick's friend Carl, the guy who thinks barking dogs are a spiritual nuisance, drone on about mailbox colors. By the end of the night, I was nominated as grounds liaison. Unanimous vote. Even Carl clapped. And just like that, I had access. My first act as grounds liaison? Propose a review of all mailbox structures in the neighborhood. Make sure they meet compliance. Start a database. Standardize things. Carl loved it. Said it would restore visual harmony. Rick looked like he swallowed a pinecone. He knew what I was doing. But he couldn't stop it. Because now, I was inside the system. And I had receipts. Still, I stayed cautious. Rick was quiet, but not defeated. Then came the night I knew things were about to break. It was 3 a.m. My phone buzzed, motion alert from the front yard cam. I pulled up the feed. And there he was. Rick. Sneaking across my lawn. Holding a crowbar. He didn't see the camera. Or maybe he didn't care anymore. Rick crept through the yard like a cartoon villain. All hunched shoulders and slow feet. Crowbar glinting in the security floodlight, I knew he'd trigger. He was headed straight for the mailbox. Again. I sat on the edge of my bed, barely breathing. Watching it unfold live on my phone screen. 2:58 a.m. Rick stopped in front of the mailbox. Looked around. Even leaned over and tapped the side of it like he was checking if it would fight back. Then he raised the crowbar. And swung. Now, here's what Rick didn't know. This was phase 2 of the plan. That wasn't just a mailbox anymore. It was rigged. Not with explosives, I'm not a lunatic. But with a custom-built tamper alarm system. Nate helped me set it up. Pressure sensor at the base. Motion detector on the post. And a 135 decibel alarm horn inside the box, hidden behind a false panel. The second he applied enough pressure. WEO, WEO, WEO. It screamed like a fire truck giving birth to a banshee. Rick jumped. Dropped the crowbar. Stumbled backward. Tripped over the flower pot I'd strategically placed at an awkward angle. Face first into the grass. It was beautiful. I threw on a hoodie and walked outside. Phone in one hand, flashlight in the other. By the time I got to the street, Rick was back on his feet. Breathing hard. Sweating like a broken AC unit. You all right there? I asked calm. He didn't answer. Just glared. Because I've got it all on camera, I said, raising my phone. Motion detection. Night vision. Full audio. He looked at the mailbox. Then at me. Then at the crowbar lying in the grass. His hands curled into fists. You set me up, he said. I smiled. No, Rick. You set you up. I just built a legal mailbox. He looked like he wanted to say something clever. But instead, he turned and stormed off. Didn't even bother picking up the crowbar. At 7 a.m., I filed a police report. With footage. Timestamped. Labeled. Attempted vandalism. Trespassing. Intent to destroy property with a tool. They didn't arrest him. But they did show up at his door with questions. I watched from my porch. Sipping my coffee like it was the finest champagne. Rick argued. Gestured wildly. Even pointed across the street at me, like I'd attacked him with the mailbox. Didn't matter. Officer handed him a citation. Warned him loud enough for me to hear. Touch it again and we're pressing charges. Then came the HOA hearing. Yeah. I called one. On my turf. As acting grounds liaison. Topic of the evening. Chronic vandalism affecting neighborhood aesthetics and safety. Rick showed up. Red-faced. Bitter. Sat in the back with his arms crossed. I pulled out the footage. The reports. Even printed the anonymous letter he'd left in my box. Nate helped me set up a projector. It felt like a TED Talk for revenge. When the video of Rick swinging that crowbar played, you could hear people gasping. One woman whispered, "Is that Rick?" Another guy said, "What an idiot." Carl, Mr. Barking Dogs Are Demonic, turned to Rick and said, "You embarrassed this neighborhood." It was the first time I saw Rick look small. He stormed out halfway through the vote. Didn't even wait for the verdict. Unanimous. Rick was fined. Banned from HOA board meetings for 6 months. Required to pay for repairs if any mailbox was damaged again. And guess who was put in charge of managing mailbox regulations? That's right. Me. Then the insurance claim hit him. I don't know how State Farm found out. Could have been the police report. Could have been the footage I, accidentally, CC'd to every local adjuster I could find. But 3 days after the hearing, Rick's precious red truck was gone. Towed off. Totaled. They denied the claim. Intentional collision with a fixed object. That phrase lives rent-free in my head now. Rick tried to retaliate. Filed a complaint with the city. Said my mailbox was a weapon. But by then, I had signed statements from the HOA, compliance records, and 3 neighbors who all said, "That mailbox never moved. He hit it. Not the other way around." His complaint was rejected in 48 hours. After that? Silence. Weeks of silence. No more accidents. No more drive-bys. No more crushed mail or knocked over bins or mystery poop piles. Rick kept to himself. Truckless. Defeated. One time I saw him walking to the bus stop. I waved. He didn't. You know what stayed untouched that whole time? The mailbox. Still standing. Not a dent. Unbothered. Unbreakable. Kind of like me, now. Revenge doesn't always need explosions or screaming matches or late-night stakeouts. Sometimes it's a box made of steel, disguised as wood, waiting patiently for the idiot who can't help himself. Sometimes the best revenge is letting them hit back, and watching them fall apart when you don't. And me? I sleep just fine now. Mailbox? Never been stronger. Rick? Well, let's just say, he finally figured out what bad energy really feels like. The mailbox still stands. It's been 6 months. 6 full months of peace. Of normal mornings. Of coffee on the porch without looking over my shoulder. No smashed mail. No tire tracks on the lawn. No Rick. Well, he's still across the street. But you wouldn't recognize him. The red truck? Gone. He drives an old silver sedan now. One of those cars with faded paint and a missing hubcap. He doesn't wave. Doesn't yell. Doesn't even mow angrily anymore. He keeps to himself. Quiet. Humbled. Some would say that's sad. I say it's earned. My neighbors asked about the mailbox sometimes. Say things like, "Whatever you did, it worked." Or, "Think you could build one for my place?" I just smile. I followed the rules, I say. Then I take a long sip of coffee and let the silence do the rest. The HOA asked me to stay on the board. Turns out, nobody wanted the job until I turned it into a front row seat to local justice. Now I get emails. "Can you check this fence height? What's the rule on RVs and driveways?" I answer when I want to. Because here's the thing. I didn't win by breaking the law. I didn't scream or stoop or go full crazy neighbor. I just held the line. Quietly. Legally. Relentlessly. Rick? He tried to turn his tantrum into a war. But I built a fortress. One post at a time. And I think that's what sticks with me the most. Revenge isn't always about explosions. Sometimes it's about standing still while the other guy runs himself into the ground. Literally. One morning, I saw him standing at the edge of his driveway. Just staring at the mailbox. He didn't say anything. Didn't come closer. Just looked. Then he turned around and walked inside. I don't know what that means. Maybe he finally got it. Maybe he was planning something else. But the difference now? I don't care. Because I'm not scared of him anymore. The mailbox isn't going anywhere. And neither am I. Though, I did just start sketching plans for a new addition. Something bigger. With lights. Maybe a little solar-powered spotlight just for flair. You know. For visibility. Safety first.